every time somebody gets done, I'm just like, wow, it's amazing. Before our next speaker, I just wanted to say I'm so thankful everybody's stuck around here to the very end. Anyway, and be glad you did, because we got little parting gifts for some of you guys. If you signed your name in and you put it in that little box, we're going to draw names at the very end, and yeah, kind of like playing bingo. Let's see. Our next speaker is Sam Eaton. He is a teacher, author, speaker, and founder of Recklessly Alive. Amazing. A suicide prevention organization sprinting towards a world with 0 deaths by suicide. A suicide survivor himself, Sam is crazy passionate about helping people tell a better story with their lives, one that is fully and recklessly alive. Sam's first book, Recklessly Alive, What My Suicide Attempt Taught Me About God and Living Life to the Fullest, was released January 2nd, 2021. Following one of his viral TikTok videos, Sam's book became one of the top 200 selling books on Amazon. Yeah. Sam speaks regularly at schools, churches, retreats, and conferences throughout the United States. He resides in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where he enjoys collecting vinyl records. And we got a vinyl record shop uptown. I wanted to tell you that, Sam. Lifting moderately heavy weights and trying every flavor of Oreos.
Every 12.8 minutes, someone in the US commits suicide, and I was almost one of them. I had picked a day, written letters, and boxed up all my belongings because I believed I was worthless and that I didn't matter. I thought this pain I felt deep in my core would never stop. When that day finally came, I sat with the knife and the pills in my hand that could end it all. Finally, after hours of wrestling with this, a question broke through. Have you really given life everything you've got? I stood up and started running. I ran out of the house as fast as I could. I ran from the darkness that told me my life was meaningless and disposable. I ran from the years of pain that hid beneath the skin. I ran from the chemicals that kept me numb and lifeless. I ran from the voices that yelled, "Are you stupid? Are you really that stupid?" I ran back to my family and friends who didn't know how deep the wounds were or what they could do to help. I ran towards a still small voice that said, maybe things could get better. I ran towards the people who could help me find a way back to the person I was created to be. I ran towards the life I always dreamed of living. I ran as fast as I could towards a life that was fully and recklessly alive. You probably know someone who's silently struggling like I was. Someone who thinks that death is their best option. Maybe even that someone is you. So to you, my friend, who's lost the person you want to be, who can't see a way that things will ever get better, let my story be the proof that there is always hope. There will be better days, days with sunshine and laughter, but they all start with a choice. So choose to stay. Choose to tell someone about the pain deep in your heart. Choose to believe that today is not the end, but a new beginning. Choose to run as fast as you can towards your big dreams because they can happen. Choose to know deep in your heart that you truly matter and you are truly loved. We need you here. Choose to live.
So we filmed that video about 6 years ago now, and I fought with God the entire time in that cornfield because I did not want anyone to know the story that I'm going to tell you today. I did not want this story out there. When I was 24, I signed up to be a missionary, and I went to Zimbabwe for the summer, a music missionary. And while I was there, we were kind of sharing our dreams, and I said, I want to write a book. And I got home, and I opened a Word document, because I don't know how to write a book, and I was started writing, and the story that came out wasn't the funny story of my life that I thought it was going to be. It was the story of my suicide attempt. And a few years after that, I'm a public school teacher. I've been teaching for 12 years. About 6 years ago, before we filmed this video, we lost 3 students, a teacher, and a principal, who all took their own life in about 18 months. And I watched my community have no idea what to do, what to say. I watched almost nothing change, and I just sat behind my teacher's desk and cried for days afterwards. This teacher that I knew very well, this principal that I had worked for, and I had this story inside that I had only told 2 people in the entire world, my family not included. I told 2 friends. And I didn't know what I would do. I had no idea what I would do. It was just that nudge, that little nudge of that I have to do something. I don't know what that is today, God, but I'm going to take a little baby step. And that little baby step was that video is how it started. And then it was that little baby step to say yes to a couple youth groups and yes a few more times. And just continues on and on. And I don't know how to change this. Our suicide rates have continued to climb pretty steadily. And people ask me all the time, well, what do we do? What are we going to do? I don't know. I don't hold the big picture. Luckily, there's a lot of other people in this room who are saying yes. They're also saying those little yeses. We've got crossover ministries. They're holding the big picture of what are we going to do, right? What is the big picture? My little part of this is I want to get people talking about things that they don't know how to talk about. I can do that. I can share stories. I can get up here and boast about my weaknesses and the struggles that I've been through. But I'm on this mission, man. I'm gonna get people talking about things that they don't know how to talk about. So we're gonna start with a couple because I got a long list. We don't got all day, but here's one of them. Things we don't know how to talk about: grown men and fanny packs. All right, hear me out. All right, don't think me closed-minded, but something about this just gives me the icks, and I just think we should learn how to talk about it. Okay. There are over 90 flavors of Oreos now. I think as a culture, we need to talk about this, okay? Nobody asked. Really, the double stuff was a nice surprise, but when we got to wasabi Oreo, I think it was the time to stop. And I like to think I'm like one of those young hip teachers, I get the kids, I wear cool shoes, we're cool. And then this started happening. And I was like, nope, I'm out. It's like, I don't understand you anymore. You're eating laundry soap. I don't understand. One more. This is, okay, people who dress their cats like Hitler. This is a real thing. You can Google it, all right? On the one hand, right, he's probably the worst person who ever lived. On the other hand, the cat is so cute. It's like Icon has Poland. You can Google it. They're called Kittlers. The Kittlers. Depression and suicide. That's what we're really here to talk about. I'm going to share parts of my story this afternoon. I'm going to give you some practical things that you can do. For those of you, we all have mental health in this room. I'm going to give you some of the practical things. We've heard lots of inspiration today. We've heard lots of people who've battled through just really impossible things. I'm going to give you some of the ways that I continue to manage some of that. And I'm going to give you some ways that we can get help if you ever feel suicidal and how we can help the people around us. So this is me. That adorable little bong thing up there is me. And what these pictures aren't telling you is I had a really tough home life growing up. My dad was an alcoholic, and because of that disease, caused a ton of pain in my life. When I came home from school, I didn't know if it was going to be like a laughy, jokey kind of a drunk day or a chair-throwing day, and my life was just in shambles. on the outside, I really had things together. I did really well in school. Even through middle school, I had straight A's. I started on the basketball team. I went to Plymouth Middle School in Plymouth, Minnesota, and our jerseys said the PMS Panthers. It's not, don't know who planned that. But on the outside, man, none of my teachers knew what I went through every day. None of my friends knew anything that was going on. My dad left when I was 12. Actually, haven't really seen him since. I wish we had that beautiful story that we just heard, but that is not our story. And when I hit high school, 14, my life really just fell apart. My grades went from A's to C's and D's. I couldn't concentrate. For the first time in my life, I felt so stupid because I couldn't focus on what was happening. I started writing on my papers, I want to die, over and over and over again, and nobody really knew, nobody really saw. I quit the sports that I had been a part of. My dad had always said, your sister's the athletic one, you're the smart one. So I quit those sports, and then my grades were tanking, so I didn't even have that. I was working all the time because my mom was working 3 jobs to keep us going, and I was just a mess. I was just a mess. And what I didn't know at that time was what I was experiencing has a name, and it's called depression. It's called depression. It's very common in our world, but no one had ever stood up on a stage, especially in a church. No one had ever stood up in a church and talked about mental health, talked about depression, talked about suicide. I'd never heard of a story of anyone who'd battled that and gotten through it. So when things got hard for me, I felt so alone. I felt completely alone. And I want to change that for every single person on the planet. Let's just get stories out there, right? Just like we've heard today. We're going to all face hard things. No one gets out of this life without pain, unfortunately. We're all going to lose someone. We're all going to struggle. We also have this really awesome God who's going to be with us through all of that struggle. So let's talk a little bit about how I have learned to manage my mental health. So 1 in 5 people have mental illness in our country. 1 in 6 will battle depression at some point. 5 in 5 people have mental health. Everybody in this room has mental health, and whether or not you have struggled with a mental illness doesn't mean you don't need to care for yourself and care for your mental health. The average time from onset of symptoms for mental health to getting treatment is 10 years. 10 years from the time that people start experiencing mental health to the time they get help, and we have to change that. We have to change that. The good news is, guys, depression is so treatable. So 80% of people feel significantly better after starting a combination of treatments in 4 to 6 weeks. 4 weeks from today, you could go from feeling like, I'm not sure I want to be alive to, life's okay. Combination of treatments. And so in my journey, I never came across anyone else talking about it like this, but my mental health journey, you're really battling on 3 different fronts, and that's why mental health is so challenging. There's this physical aspect of mental health. There's what is happening in your actual body, the chemical imbalance, the things that you're doing. There's this very mental side, the trauma, how you talk to yourself, what's happening in your brain, your relationships. And there is absolutely a spiritual element to mental health. Whether you believe in God or not, those questions of why are we here? Do I have a purpose? Does my life matter? And we kind of neglect different parts of these in different places of our world. The physical side, man, I just can't tell you how important your physical body is to your mental health. And what are the things that contribute to that? I did not work out as a kid. It's just something I have to do. I have to do to just feel good in my body. I have to exercise. Nutrition, hydration, sleep, avoiding drugs and alcohol. We've heard several testimonies about those sorts of things. Depressants. Having chronic pain makes you more prone to depression. And then medication. Sometimes our brains just need that little boost, and that's okay. So these studies about exercise are crazy to me. So they keep finding out that if you exercise every single day, it's as effective, if not more effective than antidepressants. The Harvard School of Public Health found that jogging just 15 minutes a day or going for a walk reduces your risk of major depression by 26%. So everybody has hopefully access to do something with your body, and I can tell you that is the number one thing. Everyone in my life knows Sam's got to do something. Sam's got to move his body. And so my practical advice for that is just find different ways to put exercise into your life. We all know we should be doing this, but joining a group fitness class, I went to Fit to Go on Friday in Litchfield, 5:30 in the morning. It was awesome. If you have not checked out that gym, it's awesome. They've got all these great classes, but if exercise is new for you or you're just off, just be with people. They're the nicest people. They'll help you get started. But I try to change out all coffee or happy hours with walks with my friends whenever I can. It's just another way to get some of that exercise. Trying different types of exercise. Maybe there's a sport you want to play, walking on a treadmill or under the desk. My sister has this under the desk bike thing, and she just goes all day, and I walk most days when I get up. So exercise is huge. There's more and more information coming about nutrition, specifically nutritional psychiatry, ways that we can use food as medicine and treat our brains with food and what we're putting into our body. This is a book that I really enjoyed. It's This Is Your Brain on Food, and it's just kind of going into the ways that what we eat attributes to our mental health. And she recommends, of course, all of the things that are not fun to eat. Fish and walnuts and vegetables and asparagus and all these different foods that they keep finding help balance your mood. And that's for everybody, whether you have mental illness or not. Those of you like me that have depression, we're so much more prone to these things. And these things can really help. And of course, sugar and bread and flour and French fries. And not that you can't have any of those things. It's just finding that moderation and being aware. And part of my healing journey has just been asking my questions. Okay, I feel suicidal today. Why? Just why? And being curious about my mental health. What have I done lately that has led to this? Am I caring for my body? Have I been around people that aren't good for my mental health? And then, of course, sleep is such a big part, right? That consistent bedtime, that nightly routine, our screens, trying to avoid them a little bit. But those are the three physical factors that are the most important to my mental health. And when my mental health is not good, it's usually because I'm not focusing on those three things at least a little bit. When we talk about the mental side, we hear a lot of the people up here today have talked about therapy and other things, but healing and talking about any trauma that you have been through, it took me till well in my 20s to try any therapy. And like the first Sam, I struggled to find a counselor I connected with, and there was just lots of trouble. But the way you talk to yourself is so important, and that is something you can change. The way you talk to yourself, and are you your biggest cheerleader, are you your biggest enemy, is an important part of mental health. Setting boundaries with people in your life who are not good for your mental health, your relationships, and then your ability to feel and process your emotions. A little bit about talk therapy. I also suggest meeting with a few different people, there's so much online now. You only have to talk about the things you want to talk about. You might be scared, if I go, then I'm going to have to. You don't have to. You steer it. You're in charge. And then lots of therapists will work on a sliding scale if money's a factor. So it doesn't hurt to ask and to try and advocate for yourself. And I mentioned the way you talk to yourself, never allowing your brain to talk in absolutes. How many times do we say to ourselves, things will never get better. I'll never pay off my debt. This will never happen. And I'm not letting our brain say those things. That's not helpful. We interject with yet and but, I'm not in shape yet, but today I'll go for a walk. And fighting those lies that we tell ourselves. And then taking action on those things that we don't like, right? Part of depression is you don't feel like doing anything. You just want to sit there and nothing feels fun. And it's so hard to just sometimes get out of bed. And we need to force ourselves sometimes to do those things we don't want to do. Setting boundaries with people that are challenging. I highly recommend this book, Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. If we've all got challenging people in our lives. We just got challenging people who drain our energy, right? That we hand our problems off to them, and if you're the one holding the problems, but finding ways to care for ourselves first, especially in church. We always hear selfless, and yes, be selfless. You got to care for your own heart so that you have something to give away. And then that spiritual side is so important, that spiritual side, figuring out, what are your purposes in life? Today has been such a beautiful example of people who have made those little yeses and are finding a purpose in their life and doing something to give back to the world. I heard someone working one of the tables out there say, yeah, I just feel better when I'm helping other people. And isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Just finding adventure and finding our connection to the world. Whew, okay, that was a lot of info. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and you already know what's coming because I'm a silly person. Facts. These are some facts I think everyone should know. These are really important. Here's the first one. The average chocolate bar contains between 3 and 8 insect legs. 100% true. You can Google it. When I first started speaking, I would come into the audience. I was way cooler. I'd be like, yeah, I have a Hershey's bar for you. But then everyone would just give it back because I just told them there's insects in it. So now that's no longer a budget item that we do. This one, rats multiply so quickly that in 18 months, 2 rats can have over 1 million descendants. I was speaking in New York City. Yeah, you already see where this is going. I was speaking in New York City. We were at a steak shack. The hosts had taken me out in the park, and we're sitting there eating our hamburgers, and I'm wearing sandals. 3 mice just run right across my feet, just like a cat. I jump back. I'm super dramatic. The chair falls. People are looking, and I kid you not, the hosts, they don't even look up from their hamburgers. They're like, yeah, that happens. It's like, that happens? Not in the Midwest, okay? Not in the Midwest. This one, guys, this gets me. This is a 2016 survey of adults, y'all. These are adults. 1 in 5 adults admitted to peeing in a public pool in the last year. So look around you. It's a room full of adults. 1 in 5 of those. 1 in 5. That graphic gets me. About to be peeing. Just peed. I am coaching a soccer team that's going to be at the Wisconsin Dells in a few weeks. And some much harder statistics to look at. 3.5 million people planned an attempt in 2019. 1.4 million attempts. 47,511 deaths by suicide. So this right here is Target Field in downtown Minneapolis. It seats about 39,000 people. So you can fill that entire stadium, plus have 8,000 people spilling out into the streets with the number of people who are taking their own life in our country every single year. And we still are not talking about it. We still are not going there with our conversations. We have to talk about it. That's how it starts. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for our young people, ages 10 to 24. Those are our babies, 10 years old. More teens die by suicide than cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. If you think about all of the 5Ks we have for all of those things, which is great, we got to keep doing that. We're losing more of our young people to suicide than all of those things combined. Average 5,200 attempts, grades 7 through 12, every single day. Every single day. My lowest point in my life came when I was 23. I had graduated college. I was teaching elementary school. The relationship I'd been in all through college had ended, and I was devastated. We had talked about marriage and family for a long time. I was back living at home to save money, where all this trauma and all these things had happened. So all this is coming back up as I'm going into these rooms every single day. I had enormous amounts of student loan debt. I was so embarrassed by it. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I didn't pay attention, and the market crashed, and I ended up with almost $100,000 of student loan debt to make $30,000 as a new teacher. And I was like, well, I'm never paying that off, ever. To cope with how much I was struggling, I started drinking. I drank my friends. That's what you did. If you're 23 and you want to have friends, you have to go to the bars. That's the only place they go. And the only thing they do is drink till they are unconscious. And that's what you have to do, which just made everything worse, the anxiety. And I was just trying to escape the pain. I was in so much pain just waking up every single day. Finally, in November of that year, I gave myself an ultimatum. I said, either on Christmas Day, I'm going to take my own life, or I'm never going to think about this again. And at that point, I had been battling it for almost 10 years. I had gotten almost no help, and enough was enough. I was like, I cannot do another 50 years of living this way. And I truly believed, I was like, God, if this is the plan, right? We always like, oh, God's got a plan for everybody. Jeremiah, blah, 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 right? It's like, oh, the plans I have for you. I was like, if this was your plan, you must really hate me because you've led me to a place where I don't even want to be alive. And I was a mess. I was a mess. Still, most people didn't know. And I picked Christmas Day actually because I was trying to think of a day that would be the best for my family. And one of the things I hear about suicide all the time, everywhere, suicide is so selfish. Suicide is the most selfish thing you could ever do. And I get that. And I will never diminish the pain because I know there are several people in this room who've lost someone. But if you could feel the amount of pain I was in for just a minute, I don't think you would say it's selfish. I think you would say, I get it. I get it. And suicide at its most basic level is when your pain is higher than your ability to cope. That's what it is. You don't have the tools to cope, and you think this is the only way out. Here's a couple other people who've described what it feels like to be suicidal. In the mind of the person thinking about the act, it's the complete opposite of a selfish decision. In that moment, we truly feel the world would be a better place without us. It's a situation I'm glad some people don't understand because it means they've never felt those feelings, but one which people who have never experienced themselves shouldn't be so quick to judge. And the second one, for me, it's less about death and more about ceasing the pain. It's difficult to explain how death would make you feel more alive than ever. I wasn't running from my problems. I was desperately searching for a way to conquer them. That is exactly how I felt in that moment. I mean, the best analogy I can come up with is like someone who battles anorexia, like an eating disorder where they stop eating. And you'll hear these stories of people in treatment who their bodies will be wasting away. Maybe they're 60 or 70 pounds and they're literally dying because they won't eat. And they look in the mirror and they say, I am fat. They are not seeing the world as it really is. They are in a fog. They are not experiencing the love of their friends and family. They're not experiencing the hope. Their brain is sick. Their brain is sick. And that's exactly where I was. And I was 100% convinced that I was such a burden. And my mental illness had led me to a place where I was really hard to be around. I was pushing people away. I was irritable. I was mean. I saw that effect on my family, and I saw the toll that my illness was taking on my family, and I 100% believed that the selfless thing to do was to go away and to be out. So when that day finally came, and I had written letters, I had boxed up most of my things, I had excused myself out of the Christmas Day kind of family stuff, and I was home by myself. And it is the closest thing to hell that I could ever imagine. I would pick the things up and put them back down. I would pace back and forth. I passed out on the tile floor. I woke back up. I looked in the mirror. I screamed at myself. I laid on the floor again. And somewhere late in the afternoon, I just started counting backwards from 10. And the voices in my head were so intense, right? If you think about a guy who grew up without a dad, like what's the worst thing those accusing voices could say? And, in one translation of the Bible, the devil is actually called the accuser, right? And some of that self-talk, some of those lies that get in our brain, sometimes I'm like, I don't know about the devil. That's a little woo-woo for me. And then what I experienced, those accusing parts of our brain, maybe there's something to that, because they were saying, you're not even man enough to do this, right? You're not even man enough to do this. Man up, man up. I didn't know in that moment, right, to be a real man is to do the right thing, to do the courageous thing, which in that moment would have been to reach out for help, to ask for the help that I needed. But that's not what those lies were saying. And they're just screaming at me. So I started counting backwards from 10, 9, somewhere about 8, I remember seeing all these flashes of the good things in my life, my family and my friends. 7 and 6, I saw these intense moments of bullying and abuse and all these horrible things I had lived. And 4 and 3, somewhere about 3, this question broke through, and it was, have you really given life everything you've got? Because if you have, it's okay. You can give up. This can be the end. But I'm not sure that you have. I'm not sure that you have tried everything that you can to overcome these things that feel impossible. So in the most courageous moment of my whole life, I stood up, I grabbed everything out of the bathroom, I ran out, I got in my car, and I just started driving, because that's what I've always done when my emotions are super high. I'm just driving, and finally I kind of stopped in downtown Minneapolis, and I watched the minutes tick by. 11:58, 11:59, midnight. I had made it, and I had decided to stay. I drove home, I went to bed, I woke up the next morning, emotional stability somewhat restored, and it's been a long, long journey figuring out how to manage this. It was never an instant healing. You know, I do believe that there is a God who is all-powerful and has the ability to heal us instantly. And for some of us, that's not our story. For some of us, that's not our story. We continue to battle, but we use the tools that he's given us, the science and people's brains and all these developments to live a life. Because I 100% believe that we are all put on this planet to feel fully alive. That is what I believe. I think that all these things get in the way, you know, our addictions and the struggles with our family and, you know, our parents and our relationships and all these things try to keep us from having that full life. But I truly just, when I read the Bible, what comes out to me is, man, Sam, I love you so much, and I just want you to have a good life and a full life. And the moment that came true for me, I found this in Romans 8:11. This is the Message version. It says, "It stands to reason, doesn't it, that the alive and present God who raised Jesus from the dead moves into your life. He'll do the same thing in you that he did in Jesus, bringing you alive to himself." When God lives and breathes in you, and surely he does, as he did in Jesus, you are delivered from that dead life. With his spirit living in you, your body will be as alive as Christ's. And there's my story, right? From 3 seconds away from not existing anymore to chasing a life that is fully and recklessly alive. And it's been a battle. My comfort zone is at home by myself in my bed watching Law & Order. That is the life that I want. I am happy there, going to Africa, not in my royal house, traveling to southern Illinois and hanging out and telling the worst day of my life to a bunch of people. Not as comfortable. not as comfortable. But when I finally said, okay, I'm going to stay, I'm taking suicide off the table, that's no longer an option. And I hope everybody in this room takes suicide off the table. We don't think about it. We accept that our brains can lie to us. And when they tell us that, and when they whisper that to us, we're saying no. We are saying, nope, we don't listen to that. That is not the truth. The truth is that there are ways to keep battling this and get through this. And my journey back has been all these little yeses. And immediately after my attempt, and I believed in God through this whole thing. I went to worship in college while I was still drinking, but I went to church, right? There's this misnomer that you can't have mental health and Jesus, right? You can't have a therapist and Jesus. And, you know, it's funny, as I do this work, like we've had churches that will not let us pay to rent their space because we're going to talk about suicide. They will not let us pay. I mean, I was 29 years old before I heard anyone in a church talk about mental health, depression, or suicide, and they were promoting me. They were putting my video up there, and no one had talked to me about this. But I just keep these little baby yeses going. And so that's what I said. Right after my attempt, I said, God, clearly, if you're real, I need you to show me how to live a better life, because everything that I have done has led me to a place where I don't even want to be alive. So if you're real, and I feel like maybe you're asking me to do something, I'm going to say yes. And that was my new life motto, and that was my new life. And so started with teaching some 5th grade Sunday school and being on a worship team, and then soon I went to Africa, and I was a missionary there, and soon I was starting to work on this book, and we filmed this video, and hey, Sam, what if we started talking more about this, and we can use that? And all of that just starts with these little yeses. Yes, we can talk about nutrition and physical. Yes, we can talk about Jesus and the Bible verses. It's a big picture, and it's a big picture we all We all battle together. So what do we look for? Let's use my story just to get some information out there. Talking about death, taking big risks, kind of having a death wish might be a sign, feeling hopeless, helpless, or worthless, saying things like, it'd be better if I'm not here. The truth is, people who've experienced this are experts at hiding it. They are experts at hiding it because they don't want to be a burden, just like me. I didn't want anyone to know how much I was hurting. I was the person who helped everyone else. And we have this picture of depression is crying and sad in the shower, and it's like that for me sometimes, but depression looks like this too. One of my therapists said to me a few years ago, you are the person who scares me the most, because no one would ever look at your social media and see what you've accomplished and know how deep and how hard you fight just to stay alive. And we don't know. We don't talk about that. I want to just clear up passive versus active suicidal ideation. So passive thoughts are just, I don't want to be here. This is hard. Maybe I shouldn't have existed. Those sorts of passing thoughts. And most people will admit to sharing something like that at some point in their life. Sometimes it sounds like, God, just take me home. I'm ready, right? Take me home. Active is, I'm starting to think of a plan, or I'm starting to look at methods, that sort of thing. This is the brain's alarm system. The second this goes off, from now on, everyone in this room, the second that happens, you reach out for help. You reach out for help. And if that's you, we've got the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 100% anonymous. They're not calling to tell anyone. There's a text line you can use. They're coming out with a 3-digit code here in the next couple of years, like 911, that anyone can deal and call. I pray you never have to experience what that's like, but if it's you, don't be alone. Get somewhere safe. Make an immediate healthy choice, right? So many people with mental illness end up in addiction because they're self-medicating, and it just makes things worse. So try to make that healthy choice. Just know that that's going to pass. I've been there many times. The feeling has always passed. If someone talks about it, how to help the people around us, you have to take all talk of suicide seriously. And we cannot joke about this, and I hope you hold your kids and your families and your neighbors to this standard. We don't joke about that, because what that does is it covers up the people who are actually meaning it, and then we miss that. So we don't joke about this, and if someone posts, if someone puts something on Snapchat, we take that seriously. If we can't get a hold of them, we can't get a hold of their family, we call 911. I don't know a police officer alive that would not be happy to go check on someone, make sure they're okay. Tell people who need to know. And if someone shares with you, just be chill. Just be your normal chill self. I know you. You're good. Just take a deep breath and let them share. One of the best gifts you can give me when I'm feeling suicidal is just to listen and just show that empathy. Man, I'm so sorry. That's so tough. You don't have to fix it. I know you want to fix it. Sometimes you can't. Just listen. Just listen and support. Don't judge. Supervise them. Make sure they're okay. And if you just hear one thing from me today, I want you to hear this, and that's no study has found that talking about suicide leads to more or increased suicidal thoughts. Studies have shown talking about suicide makes it much more likely that someone will seek help. When I found this out, I was like, okay, God, I'll go. I'll be your little soldier for a bit and get people talking about this, because it's not making it worse. If that idea is in their head, it's already there. And when we bring these things out into the open, like fanny packs, we can start to let everybody share. But seriously. So how do you bring it up? They analyzed 75 million text messages from the care, the text line they found. Just express it like care. You don't have to say, are you feeling suicidal? That feels gross to me. I'm just going to admit it. People have said that to me because I talk about this, and they're like, are you going to die? And that feels like they mean well, but I'm like, it doesn't feel good. But something like this. Sometimes when people go through a breakup, they might have thoughts of ending your life. I just want to make sure, have you had any of those thoughts? So phrasing it like care and concern. And so how do we help those around us? I hope that you will be courageous and post this somewhere or text this to 5 people, this message. Today I saw a suicide speaker. I just want you to know, if you ever find yourself in that place, you can always talk to me no matter how bad things get. I have some resource cards out on my table that have this message on it you can give to people text this to them. My dream is every person in the world hears this from 5 people. So whether that it's tomorrow that they might feel suicidal or it's 20 years from now, they've got 5 people who've said, hey, you can always call me, no matter what. And it starts that conversation, right? We've said the word, we're starting to talk about it. These are the resource cards that also have the connect lines on it. I have some wristbands left at my table. I use them just as a conversation starter, just at Target. You know, they say, oh, what's that? And I just say, I just want people to know who battle suicide that there's help and there's hope. That's it. Just another little piece. I've probably said that 1,000 times in my life because people ask. When you wear something, they ask. If you want to share the video, all those videos are on my website. They're on YouTube. It's just another way. Put it on Facebook, something like that. You don't know who's sitting at home, who was too scared to come to something like this, and how that video might reach them. If you would like to support me in the work that I do, my website is there. My social media has been growing, which is awesome. I actually hate social media. It's a funny little funny God thing. I didn't have social media until I started this. And I just want to reach as many people. And maybe you don't have any of this going on in your life, but maybe a few years down the road, who was that guy I saw at that thing? And I would love to stay connected with you that way. And I post little encouraging videos and things every day of things I've talked about today, self-talk and nutrition and other things. I am quitting my job and taking a really big pay cut to go do this full-time starting next year. Thank you. I am pretty scared. It's like I like eating and things like that. But so if you're connected with any schools, universities, churches, anywhere that would love to host me speaking, I would love to talk to them about making that happen. So she mentioned my book, my little book that could. So that book that I shared about, that little yes, it took 7 years to get it published. Publishers all over the country kept sending it out, and one said, gosh, you are just such a great writer. We love everything that you're doing. No one's going to read a book about suicide. Okay. Another one said, we worked actually together for 14 months. They were like, yes, this book needs to exist. We all agree it needs to exist. We only want you to tell the week that it happened and Jesus. And I was like, what? They wanted me to take out all the hard parts. They wanted me to take out the story of how I got there and just make Jesus the hero. I said, Jesus is my hero, amen, but that's not the whole story. So finally, last year, we put it out. It came out in January, and I was actually in a dark place. I was really struggling with COVID, everything else, and then in June, I was like, I should get on TikTok. It's like what all the kids are doing. I was like, I'm trying to stay relevant. And the 5th video I posted got 4.4 million views. This book went to number 1. It was the number 1 Christian faith book. It was about suicide. I took, I think, 2,000 screenshots. I was like, what? It's selling more copies than Max Lucado. Like, oh, I'm so great. But just a beautiful moment. No one's going to read a book about suicide. Sorry, wrong. Sorry, you are wrong. We need these stories out there. We just need stories. My suicide attempt happens in the middle of the book, and then the second half is everything I would have missed. I have some for sale or, of course, available on Amazon. Just started selling some merch if you want to check that out on my website, trying to raise more awareness. And I'm just going to end with this. Gosh, if you are in a dark place today and you came here because life has been so challenging, please let my story be the proof that things can get better. It won't be easy. No one here is promising that life's ever going to be easy. It's tough. We're in the trenches. But to think of everything I would have missed, because I truly believed things would never get better. There I am, 18 months later, Zimbabwe. That's Victoria Falls, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Its waterfalls as far left to right as you can possibly see, and I was just sobbing, because I've had this little whisper in my ear now for almost 10 years. You almost missed this. It just happened to me a couple weeks ago. I was playing with my niece and my nephew. You almost missed this. I finished a marathon, you guys. What? This guy. It was awful. Don't do it. It was so bad. So bad. No one should run for 4 hours and 40 minutes. It's not. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to Haiti and Puerto Rico and Europe. I started DJing weddings. I got my master's degree, and I paid off every dollar of my student loans. If that is a struggle in your life, Dave Ramsey was a huge part of that for me, and just getting on a budget and really taking ownership of that. And it was hard work, but all of those things I believed, this will never happen, right? All of those lies in my brain, slowly, year after year from hard work, they all went away. These are my niece and my nephew, my mom and sister. I can't imagine having never met them. I babysit them once a week all summer long. They are insane, but I love them. About 4 hours is my limit, and then I'm like, oh, here you go. Your turn. These are some of my best friends. We went to Vegas for my 30th birthday. These are my 3 best friends we met in 6th grade. I was in all 3 of their weddings, and I just can't imagine how different that day would have been for them if I had made a different choice. I started doing CrossFit, which is terrible. Everything there is very heavy. But it's enjoyable. I was whitewater rafting last summer right before everybody else fell out of the boat, but me. Yes. And the guide. Sorry, everybody else. I am the chosen one. And so wherever you are at in your journey, wherever you are coming into this room today, I fully believe that God or the universe, if you don't believe in God, gives us these little nudges to do something with our life and to help in little and big ways. And whatever you're facing, whatever those challenges feel like in your brain, they're like, this is impossible. I just pray that you will continue to fight for that. If there's anybody in this room that feels like maybe the world would be a better place without you, I just want you to know that could not be more of a lie. It's the biggest lie. I was giving this talk in South Carolina. This 82-year-old woman came up to me. She's like, my next door neighbor boy took his own life when he was 17, and I have thought about him every single day since. Doing this work, I've worked with families, and your impact on this world, you don't understand how important you are. Right? When you are born, that newborn baby, those perfect parents, that baby has done nothing to deserve love. And those parents love that baby like crazy. And that's how God feels about you. That is how God feels about you. You don't have to earn that love. Just by being here, your life has value and it has worth. And we need you here every single day. Every single day. So I just pray that you will give life everything that you've got, and you'll keep fighting against all these things. Will you pray with me? Hey, God, thank you for this incredible day. Thank you for all of the warriors who've been fighting for months to put this together, who've been praying for every person in this room who came here, who had just the wisdom to see how much we needed this in our world and how much we just need to talk about it. I pray, God, you would use these messages to lift up the spirits and the hearts of everyone in this room and give them strength to keep fighting for you and fighting for that fully and recklessly alive life, that they never forget they were made on purpose for a purpose and that they are never alone in this life. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.